Every person is capable of making a sale, and this starts with having the right attitude and personality. You need to be optimistic about selling, and you need to be a constant ray of sunshine. In short, a guest is more likely going to purchase a product or service from a positive, friendly employee as opposed to a negative, unfriendly individual. Once you have the right mindset, you are ready to learn more in-depth skills that are required to make a sale. Although it may seem strange at first, you listen to your guests by paying careful attention to their body language. By observing their behavior and body language, you are listening to the things that their body is saying without them even speaking. In fact, it is estimated that up to 60% of communication is done through body language. All of this communication is highly valuable in helping us to make suitable recommendations and sell to our guests. It makes sense then that in order to serve effectively, you will need to observe correctly. Reading your guests' body language involves two different aspects. The clothes your guests are wearing are a wonderful source of hints and tips on what to recommend to them. If you look for the right signs, something like dress code can help to guide your recommendations when interacting with your guests. Look at the following types of guests: businessmen, partygoers, and beach guests. What assumptions can we make about them? Let's say that your guest is potentially a businessman who is about to go to a meeting or who has a busy day ahead of him. What does that tell you about what he might like? A cappuccino for energy, the morning newspaper from his country, or perhaps a taxi for a trip into town? What valuable insight! In another example, what about a guest who comes to your food and beverage area in an evening dress, looking all set for a fun night ahead with friends? What might be a valuable recommendation here? Well, most evenings start with a refreshing drink or aperitif, so recommending champagne or a delicate cocktail such as vodka martini would probably hit the spot. This guest is wearing swimming shorts and looks like they have come from the pool. We know there is nothing better than a refreshing ice-cold drink after a day in the sun, or perhaps a massage on the beach in a shady spot by the trees. Also, hot weather usually means guests would want a lighter meal, so recommend the fillet might not work here. Rather, a chicken and avocado wrap, or gorgonzola and parma ham baguette, a classic club sandwich, or even fish and chips might be more appropriate in this instance. From these examples, you can see how dress code can help you to determine what type of guest you are serving and can be a useful hint in shaping your recommendations. By looking at body language, you can pick up on many signs about how the guest is feeling. By looking at their posture, you can often get an idea of their emotional state of mind. Someone with slumped shoulders may be tired, grumpy, or disappointed, while someone who is standing up tall may be positive, excited, or energized. Perhaps the tired guest would like a trip to the spa for a relaxing massage, or they may just like to be left alone if they are looking preoccupied or grumpy. Perhaps the positive, excited guest will want to interact a little more with you about the menu if you are a waiter, or about the available adventure activities if you are at the concierge desk. These excited or relaxed guests will be open to you making suggestions about trying new things like specific local dishes or cultural activities. How the guest is moving is also a great opportunity for us to read them. If they are walking slowly in a relaxed fashion, they may be telling you that they are relaxed and not in a rush at all. In contrast, a guest who is walking quickly and who seems fidgety with short, sharp movements is likely to be stressed or in a rush, and we will need to adjust our service style and recommendations towards speed, efficiency, and dishes which don't take too long to prepare. When you have more than one guest to assist, you can learn a great deal from their interaction with one another. Families, couples, or groups with lots of natural interaction are more likely to enjoy family activities such as topless bus tours or boat trips. Business interactions are normally a little more formal, and these guests are likely to prefer dining with clients or ordering room service when they're traveling alone. In this way, Constantly analyzing your guests' movement and interaction will really assist you to make more focused recommendations. Questioning is a natural part of your conversation, whether you're talking to friends, family, colleagues, or guests. An open-ended question encourages the guest to explain, describe, or tell you about something in more detail. In responding to an open-ended question, your guests will answer the main focus of the question, but in the process also tell you much more information by qualifying or giving us examples of what they mean. The more your guests tell you, the more you know about their preferences, wants, or needs. Open-ended questions in this way are the questions that you should try to focus on when engaging with your guests about their preferences and desires. Asking open-ended questions may require some practice and preparation at first. Spend some time thinking about how to ask your questions in a way that allows you to ask open-ended questions. This will be a good investment of your energy. Remember that it is easier to ask one broader open-ended question than it is to ask many closed-ended questions that could continue to lead you to dead ends or limited answers. Closed-ended questions are often an invitation for the guest to say no, which puts an end to your recommendation and also the potential sale. If you are unsure about whether or not the question you would like to ask is open-ended, ask yourself if it will encourage people to talk about their likes and dislikes. Use words like describe, explain, tell me about, or what in particular do you like about? If, in practicing your questions, you can imagine that the guest will tell you a number of things or give you a valuable description, then you're doing it right. In many cases, it's better to ask a guest an open-ended question as opposed to a closed-ended question. Closed-ended questions can be very limiting as they generally require a one-word answer. Often these are yes or no answers or one-word answers. However, these questions can be useful when you're trying to learn more about a guest's overall preference by giving them a choice between two options. Perhaps you are working in the restaurant and you would like to find out if a guest prefers to drink red wine or white wine. If they have a particular preference, it is helpful to know so you can narrow your recommendation. If you did not find this out in the first place, you might end up recommending a white wine to a guest who only drinks red wine. Another example of when you might use closed-ended questions is in concierge. You could ask a holiday guest if they prefer activities in the city such as shopping or if they would rather see more of the countryside and beaches. The guest might even say both, which will still give you an idea of what types of activities you can recommend to them during their stay. You could then follow with an open-ended question such as, what particular types of activities are you interested in during your stay? Use as many open-ended questions as possible when trying to learn more about your guests' preferences. This will guide you in making customized recommendations to your guests while adding value to their experience. In some instances, it's also helpful to combine your open-ended questions with some closed-ended questions that will help you to clarify the guest's needs and wants. Now we're going to look at a way that you can use your body language to improve the way you communicate with your guests. With effective body language, your ability to listen actively can be greatly improved. Body language can also be used in a positive way to show your guests that you're interested in what they are saying. You are now aware of how an understanding of your guests' needs can help you make recommendations and sell effectively. We have also looked at how active listening can help you achieve these goals. Luckily, active listening is a skill that can be worked on and improved on constantly. You have learned the value of being able to paraphrase and summarize what has been said by a guest, but your own physical actions also play an important role in the active listening process. So in this lesson, we'll focus on the use of body language. It's all about the posture. Setting your body up the right way not only allows you to actively listen to your guest, but also demonstrates that you are giving your guest your undivided attention. Step 1. Square your body. Squarely face the person with open body language. This demonstrates that your ears and mind are open to the guest and that you are not distracted by anything. Look at the following two examples. Which person would you feel is listening better to what you're saying? Option B, of course. Remember to stay open and face the guest at all times, making sure not to close off your body by folding your arms or covering your face. Step 2. Lean in. Lean in towards the guest when they speak. This will show that you are really concentrating on what they are saying. It will also allow you to hear what they are saying in a busy environment such as the lobby. Leaning away or to the side shows that your mind is elsewhere. Always keep a professional distance between you and your guest, around 4 feet. You want to seem interested and attentive without invading their personal space. The guest does not need to see your nostril hairs. Step 3. Maintain eye contact. Without staring at your guests in an eerie fashion, focus your attention on them by making eye contact. Again, this shows that you're interested in what they are saying, and it also helps you to focus on what you are hearing. If your eyes look down, up, or to the side, the guest will think you are lacking in confidence or are disinterested, and you may miss out on important cues that the guest is giving you. Making eye contact shows the guest that you are interested in their well-being, adding value to the overall experience, and ultimately making them feel more inclined to purchase what you're offering. Step 4. Relax. Staying relaxed will help you to focus on what your guest is saying, rather than any emotions or nerves that you may be feeling. If you constantly remind yourself to relax, you will stand comfortably and display a positive, calm demeanor to your guests. Remember that smiles are infectious, and they will help you and your guests feel relaxed and at ease. Would you rather buy a Coca-Cola or an ice-cold Coca-Cola? Or how about a salad versus a fresh, crisp salad? Descriptive recommendations can really assist you in your efforts to sell. You would rather pay for a spacious and luxurious room as opposed to just a room. Essentially, two products could be identical, but if one salesperson attempts to sell it without describing its characteristics, then they are less likely to sell than the salesperson that does. Language has the ability to make or break a sale. You could try and sell a spa treatment by telling the guest how nice it is, but there's a good chance you may put them off just by using such a generic, boring word. You could rather have described the treatment as being refreshing and invigorating, or maybe you described the dessert as being velvety and creamy. You need to use descriptive words that relate to that product or service that will create images and feelings in the minds of your guests. You don't have to have the world's broadest vocabulary in order to use the correct terminology when making a sale. You just need to use words that will help you describe something in a way that will make it sound enticing. Ensure that you don't repeat the same words when describing something to a guest. Think about how you would feel if you were the buyer who has to listen to the estate agent go on and on about how exquisite the views are, how exquisite the rooms are, how exquisite the kitchen is. Exquisite, exquisite, exquisite! Eventually, all you'll start to focus on is how annoying and insincere the word exquisite sounds. Maybe you're talking to a sporty guest about the exhilarating water sports that are available at your establishment. You could mention the thrilling parasailing and the challenging barefoot skiing amongst other options. In some instances, it might be appropriate to explain how a product is exclusive to your brand, meaning that it is the only one of its kind. This often makes that product seem more attractive to a guest because it makes them feel more important. You could also explain how a certain item will save the guest money in the long run. An example of this would be to sell a loyalty card to a guest so that you ensure repeat business from that person. By constantly making use of the guest's name, you are making the experience more personal. They want to feel like everything is about them, like they're more than just another number filling up your establishment. If you've ever come across a really annoying salesperson, you probably have an idea about what not to say. In this case, it's more about using certain phrases that could be detrimental to the sales process. The key is to avoid sounding bossy, pushy, or too assertive. Don't tell a guest that they must buy something or they must order something. Avoid dramatic phrases such as, "You simply can't live without this," or "You have to have it." You also need to avoid using the phrases "I can't," or "I won't," or simply just "no." This immediately shows the guest that you are unable to or unwilling to fulfill their needs. Perhaps the query requires consultation with a manager or expert, such as a wine sommelier. Make sure that you think about every possibility before indicating that it can't be done. The impression that you have done everything you possibly can to keep your guest happy is a good one. For example, a guest may ask if you could book them a table in your establishment's private dining area, but you know that the area is hosting a business function for that evening. Rather suggest that they dine at one of your other restaurants and they could book the private dining area for the following evening. Finally, avoid sounding like a doctor. Think about those times when you head to the doctor and they tell you what's wrong with you. You often leave the doctor's room wondering what on earth the doctor actually just said. It's the same for hospitality. Be sure to avoid using jargon and abbreviations that the guest might not understand. You may know what MICE stands for, but your guest will probably think you are referring to small, furry gray rodents, and try explaining your way around that one. Never assume that your guest understands industry-specific terminology. Keep these few rules about sales language in mind and use them to your advantage when interacting with your guests. Remember to use descriptive words without repeating them and never tell a guest that you can't do something. Don't use forceful language that is pushy or bossy, and keep it simple. If you walk into a second-hand car dealership and ask the salesman whether your new car seats warm up and he responds with, "Ooh, I'm not really sure about that," what kind of impression will this leave on you? What does it say about your trust in the professionalism of the store and the employees who work there? More importantly, what do you think the experience would do to that employee's confidence? Similarly, your guests come to your property expecting you to be a true professional, with a superior knowledge of your establishment's products and services. They want to be delighted, surprised, and guided by you to ensure that they select the items that will give them the ultimate guest experience. For this reason, it is up to you to ensure that you have a great understanding of the products that you sell and the services that you offer. If you have thorough knowledge of your menu, you will be able to make valuable recommendations that suit the guest's preferences. Also, if a guest can see that you know your products well, then they will be more than likely to trust your opinion and agree to order or book what you have recommended. When comparing your establishment with a competitor, a guest is most likely to choose whoever has gained their trust. You might offer a similar product as your competitor, but without sufficient product knowledge, you may not be able to explain the product as well as they can. In this way, you could lose out on sales. Product knowledge also helps to boost your confidence. The more you know about something, the more confident you are when speaking about it. This makes you more relaxed when talking to a guest. It becomes easier to point out the advantages or benefits of your product or service without worrying that you're going to say the wrong thing. Imagine telling your guest how wonderfully relaxing your spa's hot rock massage is when the treatment isn't even available. How would that make you feel? Probably not so great. With an in-depth knowledge of your products and services, you'll be able to recommend those that really suit your guests' preferences, thereby gaining their trust and boosting your own confidence. Go out and learn something about your establishment's products and services that you didn't already know. Continue to do this every day and you'll be amazed by how much you'll learn. It's a given that you'll need to have thorough knowledge about your own department's products and services, but a guest won't always know exactly which department you work in. It's therefore important to know as much as you can about the entire establishment so that you can assist your guests in their efforts to find out more about the products and services on offer. For example, you may be working in the bar, but if a guest stops to ask you where the activity center is, you should know where it is and you should be able to give them the opening and closing hours. You don't necessarily need to know what activities are on offer for that day, but you have still been helpful and you've made it easy for the guests to find the service or product that they're looking for. With the above in mind, you should have basic knowledge of the following: opening and closing hours of all departments or facilities, location of all departments or facilities, general overview of what services and products are available within the establishment, history of the establishment, and interesting facts about the establishment, such as various sustainable practices that help to conserve the environment, the star rating of the establishment, or awards that you have won. Now, let's discuss attention to detail. It's important that you pay attention to the finer details of the product or service that you're offering within your department. Those small details are the ones that could help you gain the competitive edge or could help you persuade the guest to purchase what you're trying to sell. Bear in mind, though, that the guests are the ones on vacation, not you. They don't need to hear about how you've sampled every cocktail on the menu or that you're working your way through the water sports activity list. If you are a waiter, you might encounter a guest who would like you to recommend a dish that is low in carbohydrates, gluten-free, and vegetarian. If the guest is allergic to gluten, and you accidentally recommend a dish with gluten in it, then you could be responsible for that guest seeing less of their beautiful hotel room and more of a sterile hospital room. Always be as accommodating as possible. Perhaps you don't have any dishes that fit this particular description, but there's a good chance that if you move a few things around, you could come up with an appropriate meal. As a waiter or bartender trying to increase your sales, it's helpful to pay attention to what guests tend to drink at certain times of the day. For example, a guest arriving for dinner service may be persuaded to take you up on your suggestion of an aperitif before and a delicious digestif after the meal. But perhaps you've noticed that they appear slightly tipsy after the meal, so a strong espresso and a still water might be appropriate. This attention to detail is what will help you to sell the right product to the right guest. Make sure you are always aware of the finer details, such as what type of cotton you use for the bed linen, which wines are available in the cellar, how the creme brulee is specially prepared, or which rooms are south-facing. Your attention to detail may not always be directly noticed by the guest, but it most certainly contributes to the overall experience, which could encourage them to come back and purchase your product or service again. How often has a guest asked you a question, and although you aren't really sure about the answer, you attempt to answer it anyway? Avoid this at all costs, as it could get you into trouble if it turns out you are actually incorrect. At the same time, the guest will be disappointed. We all know how bad disappointment feels, so if you are ever unsure of the answer to a question, consider the following options. Tell the guest that you will find the best person to answer their question. Then be prompt with getting an answer. You don't want to inconvenience the guest by taking up too much of their time. If no one can answer the question, explain that you haven't come across this question before, but you would be happy to look into it and get back to it as soon as you possibly can. Offer the guest a drink or coffee while they wait, and keep them updated so they're not left wondering what they're waiting for. It's important that you learn from the experience and that you are prepared for the next time a guest asks the same question. This will result in less chance of losing a sale because you weren't able to assist the guest. Also, remember not to make something seem much better than it actually is. Don't be the estate agent who makes a cactus sound like a rose. Often when preparing your product knowledge, your best source of information is your supervisor or manager. For example, if you want to find out more about food and wine pairings, you will start by asking your sommelier to assist you with your recommendations or by requesting training. This training request would go to your supervisor. Depending on their knowledge on the subject, they may organize a training session for all relevant team members or agree to give the training themselves. Don't be shy to ask your supervisor for information about your products and services. They will more than likely be happy to show off their knowledge. The internet can be a great source of information when building up your product knowledge. For example, if you would like to know more about spirits and what they are made of, it's as simple as throwing a few words into a search engine and click, click, click. You do, however, need to make sure that your source is reliable. The best way to do this is to cross-check the information provided by checking that at least 2 different sources provide you with the same information. If you don't have access to the internet, you could look for interesting magazine articles or books that give you some excellent insight into certain products. This is especially relevant for those of you who are selling specialized items in departments such as food and beverage or spa and health. You can always learn from your fellow team members who may even have the same job title as you. They may have encountered the same difficult question about a product that you have now been faced with. If you ask them to help you, they may very well be able to shed some light on the situation. Or, your colleagues might have been here for longer than you and have built up a wealth of product knowledge. Consult them when you have questions about certain products or services, and if they can help you, they will be glad to do so. Remember these tips when you are interested in learning more about what your establishment has to offer. Make use of valuable sources such as your supervisor, the internet, books or articles, and fellow colleagues. The more you learn about your products and services, the greater value you will be able to add to your guests' experience. Just like all world-class service experiences, the sales process with your guests begins from the moment the guest walks in the door or picks up the phone to make a reservation. From these first few seconds, they are forming vital impressions about the style, quality, and professionalism of what you can offer. The first impression that you create in the mind of the guest, therefore, is just as important as a sales recommendation that you will make. When a guest interacts with you for the first time, the first 30 seconds of that interaction are crucial. This time is all you have to make an excellent first impression and set the tone for your sales environment. Impress the guest with your welcome and professionalism, and they will be more likely to spend the rest of their time with you feeling confident in your ability to provide them with an exceptional level of service. Remember, you are their guide. Gaining their trust in those first 30 seconds will go a long way in encouraging your guests to follow your recommendations. You'll also have more confidence in your own ability to make more sales. Always remind yourself that your initial greeting is an indirect opportunity to sell, which is why that first impression is so important. Always try and greet your guests by name. If you've never met them before, you could greet them as sir or ma'am, but always try to learn their name as soon as possible. You could introduce yourself by saying, "My name is Dwayne, and it's my pleasure to assist you today. How may I address you?" Even Starbucks decided to start writing customers' names on their coffee cups so that employees could address by name. This was a great initiative to personalize their service, as long as they know how to spell your name. Always try to pronounce your guest's name correctly. If you're unsure, ask them. The bet is they would rather tell you how to pronounce their name than be called something weird and wonderful. Greet your guests with a warm, friendly, and genuine smile. Always indicate that you're interested in their well-being by asking polite questions. You might like to ask if they're joining you for a special occasion, for example, or if they're from out of town. It's also helpful to know if they have joined you before. These pleasantries are a must when welcoming a guest, as they help you to create a rapport. Creating a rapport is about finding common ground with the guest or setting the tone for an environment in which the guest will feel comfortable, relaxed, and well looked after. This is not to say that you should attempt to become the guest's new best friend. Avoid being overly familiar or too chatty. This could annoy the guest or make them feel slightly awkward. Always show your interest in what your guest is saying. You can do so by using words such as great, amazing, exciting, or fantastic. However, be sure to use these words in the relevant context. During your introductions to each other, perhaps the guest indicated that they had a tough day. Try something like, "I'm so sorry to hear that. Let us help you take your mind off your day. Perhaps a nice relaxing massage in the spa might be exactly what you need." If it's clear that the guest has stayed with you before, don't offer to give them another full orientation of your establishment. The guest may find this redundant and impersonal. Rather, guide them through your new products and services. Maybe a new restaurant has been added, or the gym facility renovated since their last visit. Think about your local grocery store. They strategically place the necessary items around the outskirts of the store so that you have to pass all of the aisles to get your milk, bread, and vegetables. This is what you need to do for your establishment. If you're a porter and you're showing your new guests to their room, don't just take them straight to their room without guiding them through your establishment. Rather, draw their attention to the luxurious pool bar where they can sip cocktails and watch the sun go down. Then take them past your spa and gym facilities and talk to them about the various available offers. You could also strategically plan a route that guides the guests past one or two of your popular in-house restaurants, and maybe even show them the family playing tennis or the docked yacht that's ready to take a group of guests out of the harbor for a cruise. Similarly, if you're working in a restaurant, be sure to point out tempting products by showing your guests the wine cellar or the barista's station. The facilities may be different in your hotel, but always be sure to give your guests a brief yet valuable orientation. If they don't know what's on offer in your fantastic establishment, then they might choose to look elsewhere for entertainment, and you'll end up selling nothing but the room. If you have created a warm, welcoming, and professional first impression, then you are one step closer to making more sales. Remember that from the moment your guest sets foot in your establishment, you have begun to sell. It's not about forcefully asking them to buy products, but rather about making tailored recommendations or creating an experience that makes the guests want to return to your establishment in the future.